Hello, hello, it's Pattyjo. We are on day 9 of Terrible Darrible, the goblin monster who stomped his way really across the United States, but definitely across poor little Wisconsin. Wow. And we're in the middle of Detective Carpenter's testimony, where they break it up into pieces. You know, there's just so much there. He could have they could have wheeled him in, in some kind of, I don't know, anything, and Daryl wouldn't have stood a chance because he gave himself up. He lied and lied and lied. Terrible Darrible just doesn't know the truth if it came up and smacked him in the face. But they broke the testimony up. They're going to call in the gentleman who needs the interpreter, who I believe is Daryl's witness, not the state's witness. And again, there's probably a bunch of reasons why, they have a witness list and then they narrow it down for simplicity's sake. If there's duplicate testimony for this gentleman, quite honestly, it could be because it would be hard for the jury to understand through an interpreter if they could get the same testimony from somebody who speaks English a little bit better, and the jury is English speaking. I know a lot of people think, it's America speak English, but these people are no less intelligent because they speak Spanish first, or Spanish is their first language. And even if they do speak English, still Spanish is their first language. You don't just change that to automatically English because that's the way you think. Really? Should we all go back to Latin? Unbelievable. Okay, but all right, let's. Oh, thanks for congratulating me on my car.
And then if Mr.
Feel like I'm an adult now.
Ryan would accompany
and congratulations
the witness.
On all
this
of
will
you
be
who
Mr.
Have used cars.
Juan Marquez being called by Mr. Brooks.
Oh, it is Mr. Brooks. It is Terrible Darrible.
Sorry about that.
And he's still not prepared. Not prepared. How can I prepare? Terrible Darrible preparing.
And Mr. Brooks is calling Juan Marquez. Is that true, sir? Mr. Brooks, are you calling Mr. Marquez as a witness at this time?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Marquez, if you would accompany the interpreter all the way to the witness stand.
Yeah.
Where's my instruction? When you get there, we're going to have the interpreter sworn first.
Do you swear that you will interpret truly, accurately, completely, and impartially in accordance with the standards prescribed by law, the Code of Ethics for Court Interpreters, and Wisconsin Guidelines for Court Interpreting?
I do. Certified Spanish interpreter Patrick Ryan.
Thank you. And Mr. Marquez, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn by my clerk?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Impartially in accordance with the standards prescribed by law, the Code of Ethics for Court Interpreters, and Wisconsin Guidelines for Court Interpreting?
I do. Certified Spanish interpreter Patrick Ryan.
Thank you. And Mr. Marquez, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn by my clerk?
Yeah, they're going to swear that guy in. I'm gonna read. Okay. Kim Spring, where did he get that awful accent? I guess you're asking about terrible Darrible. These others have cool Wisconsin accents. I know, like the way they say car, like really open mouth. It's really interesting. They can't, and he can't even speak English. No, for sure. They say identity injured party. What else do you want? They are even when they say yes, yeah. Even when they say yes, I'm an injured party. He glosses over like they didn't say that or something. Like it doesn't click with his reality. Like it's not in his narrative. So it can't be. Okay, so where did he get that accent? Because he thinks he's a thug. He fancies himself a thug, and quite frankly, what little I know about gang culture, we are taught a little bit how to identify certain things as paramedics working in urban areas, and you pick up certain things. Quite honestly, I got away with a lot because I'm an older woman, asking some of these gang members certain things so that they would tell me. They would literally explain it to me. Just if I respectfully asked, I don't understand what this is. What is this? And they would answer it. Interesting, but he really fancies himself part of that culture. And believe me, just like the Sovset thing, he's not. Woo.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sí.
Yes.
Please have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have an instruction to read to you. No matter what language people speak, they have the right to have their testimony heard and understood. You are about to hear a witness in which an interpreter will translate for one of the witnesses. The interpreter is required to remain neutral. The interpreter is required to translate between English and Spanish accurately and impartially to the best of the interpreter's skill and judgment. The evidence you are to consider is only that provided through the official court interpreter. Although some of you may know the non-English language used, it is important that all jurors consider the same evidence. Therefore, you must base your decision on the evidence presented in the English translation. You must disregard any different meaning of the non-English words. You must evaluate interpreted testimony as you would any other testimony. That is, you must not give interpreted testimony any greater or lesser weight than you would if the witness had spoken English. Keep in mind that a person might speak some English without speaking it fluently. That person has the right to the services of an interpreter. Therefore, you shall not give greater or lesser weight to a person's translated testimony based on your conclusions, if any, regarding the extent to which that person speaks English. With that,
It is actually kind of sad that we have to remind ourselves, even though I don't know which side of that line you fall on, whether you say that people should speak English if they're here in America, or, if they should be free to speak whatever language. But if you are first language Spanish speaking, or first language any other language speaking, it does not mean that you are less intelligent in any way, shape, or form. And what is the time limit? Because I've been trying to learn how to speak Spanish, or any other language, quite frankly, for about 10 years, 15 years now. And I can't do it. They say people who are bilingual or multilingual are smarter. They're smarter than me.
that, sir, the first thing I will ask you to do is to state and spell your first and last names for the record.
Juan Marquez.
Juan Marquez.
Juan.
Juan.
Marquez.
Marquez.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir, you may question this witness.
Good morning, Mr. Marquez.
Buenos días, señor Marquez.
You were at the parade
Ugh.
on November 21st, 2021. Is that correct?
Usted estaba en el desfile del 21 de noviembre de 2022, ¿correcto?
Es correcto.
That is correct.
And do you recall who you were there with that day?
¿Se acuerda con quién estaba ese día?
Con mi esposa y mi hijo.
With my wife and with my son.
And were you marching in the parade that day?
¿Usted estaba caminando en el desfile ese día?
Sí.
Yes.
Do you remember who you were marching
¿Se
with?
acuerda
Was
con
it
quién
a
estaba caminando?
Stop.
particular
Stop.
group?
¿Un grupo en particular?
Sí.
Yes.
Do you recall who that group was?
¿Se acuerda quién era el grupo con el cual estaba desfilando?
Sí.
Yes.
That's a yes or no question. Thank you.
And at some point, you felt something hit your leg?
Y en un momento usted sintió que algo le pegó su pierna.
Es correcto.
That's correct.
And do you remember what that was?
¿Se acuerda qué fue?
Un vehículo.
A vehicle.
And did you see the vehicle?
Even Juan wants to move this along. Did you feel something hit your leg? Daryl. That's a yes or no question. Yeah, I felt something hit my... Yes. Do you remember what group you were marching with? Yes, I remember. Then he doesn't clarify which group it is. God, you're stupid. Maybe I don't know.
¿Vio el vehículo? ¿Lo vio?
No.
Let's see if Daryl can
No.
come to a point. Did you see?
At some point, did you go to Freighter Hospital?
En algún momento usted pasó al hospital Freighter.
Sí.
Yes.
And were you interviewed by any law enforcement at that time?
¿Usted fue entrevistado por algún agente policial o policía?
Sí.
Yes.
Do you recall if it was regular officers or FBI?
¿Se acuerda si fue un oficial regular o fue la agente de FBI?
FBI.
FBI.
Do you recall telling them that the truck was black?
¿Se acuerda que usted le
Grounds.
The objection is sustained as to leading. Please rephrase your question.
Do you remember what color you told them the truck was?
¿Se acuerda si usted se acuerda qué color dijo él? ¿Qué color de la troca fue?
No recuerdo.
I don't remember.
Say snappy.
So it would be fair to say you don't recall seeing anything at that time?
¿Se puede decir que usted no se acuerda de nada en ese tiempo?
No.
No.
And did you at any time file a claim related to this incident?
¿En algún momento usted archivó un reclamo con respecto a este incidente?
That's vague.
No recuerdo.
I don't remember.
Do you know if anyone you were with filed a claim related to this incident?
¿Sabes si alguien con él, alguien que la acompañó? Si
Now he is understanding the problem with having somebody who doesn't speak your language, even with an interpreter, questioning them for the purposes of defending yourself. Now, okay, little story. I know there's a couple of EMS providers out there, and I don't know if your jurisdictions were better at spending money in certain areas. We had a large Spanish-speaking population. We had a large Asian-speaking population in certain areas of the city where I worked. And I was very lucky to have police officers who were bilingual, like straight up bilingual, could speak Spanish just as well as they spoke English, and could and so I could ask certain questions like, are you in any pain? Where does it hurt? How did you get injured? Is there, do you have any allergies? I mean, there were questions that I needed to know to adequately treat somebody that I can't get if there's a language barrier. And even with an interpreter, it's difficult. And you have to make sure you're listening and asking pointed questions, which completely changes the way you learn how to ask people medical questions, which is open-ended. You don't want an open-ended question from somebody that you don't understand. And here's the example, because this is what our jurisdiction gave to us. They were sheets of paper that were laminated, and they had the sample questions. Everybody who's EMS knows what I'm talking about, the sample questions. And they had them in English, and then they had them phonetically in Spanish. Now, we had a bilingual person in our education department, and he contributed, so they were correct. So we would phonetically try to read this to somebody, but okay, I'll go that way in a second, but and then they would, because they're open-ended questions, start prattling off in their language. Whatever was the answer to the question, and you'd be like, nowhere on this paper does it tell me how to interpret what they're saying. Just, I've asked them. And I don't know, so legally maybe the fire department, I don't know what the goal of this one sheet of paper was. It certainly wasn't helpful. It certainly was not helpful. And you couldn't point to the question or have them point to answers for you. Even on Google Translate on my phone, which I was not allowed to use, I did better. So he is now finding out that it's not easy to question somebody who does not speak your language and that you're working through an interpreter. So he's not able to get any of these soft sit ideas across or anything. He didn't even ask him what group he was marching with.
¿Hecho un reclamo con respecto a este incidente?
No lo sé.
I don't know.
There you go. If anybody else filed anything.
Would you consider yourself an injured party in this incident?
¿Se
Yes.
considera
Yes,
una
he's
parte
injured.
herida, lesionada
Sí.
debido a este incidente?
Yes.
Sí.
Yes.
Oh, Daryl, there's an injured party. There you go.
Any reason why you wouldn't file a claim since you considered yourself an injured party?
Por el hecho que usted
Grounds.
The claim is filed on his behalf.
herido durante ese incidente, ¿alguna razón por la cual no archivaría un reclamo?
There's an objection. It's sustained as to the form of the question. Please rephrase.
Por favor, diga la pregunta de nuevo.
¿Me puede repetir la pregunta?
Here's where we get
No tiene que contestar.
complicated.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Please rephrase, Mr.
Por favor,
Brooks.
diga la pregunta de diferente manera, señor Brooks.
This is where we're going to get complicated because he's not going to understand.
It's kind of hard to rephrase.
Es un poco difícil.
Because I don't know what the question was. Dork. Hard to rephrase.
Did you intend on filing a claim related to this case?
Por su
Objection.
intención de archivar un reclamo con respecto a este caso.
Hold on, there's been an objection. The ground.
Sesión.
Your Honor, first of all,
Primero,
this witness testified he doesn't
Testigo testificó
recall
que
filing
no
a
se acuerda
claim,
de eso.
so I'm not sure what the relevance then would be of the question.
The question was, did he intend to?
su intención de archivar.
I'll sustain the objection as to the form of the question. Please rephrase.
I think that's a cop out.
Do you recall at any time filing a police report?
¿Se acuerda en un momento usted de archivar un reporte de policía?
Sí.
Okay, so here's where we get into some complication here. Because there's all kinds of ways to file certain things, and I can't understand or parse out exactly what I'm doing in certain circumstances. But I've gone to a commissioner and written out a statement, and that was filing something. That's filing directly with somebody to get a protective order or whatever based on somebody doing something that I found offensive, that offended my rights. I have reported things that other people have written reports, and that's a type of police report. Could be criminal, could be civil. I wouldn't know if I was never like called back into the situation. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't really separate these things. It doesn't really matter to me. If I feel it needs to be reported, I report it, and then I move on, and until otherwise instructed.
Yes.
And was that
Maybe
with
that makes me dumb.
local law enforcement?
Eso
If
fue
you recall.
la agencia de policía local, ¿sí se acuerda?
No recuerdo.
I don't remember.
Did any law enforcement from that report follow up with you at any time?
A una representante de una agencia policíaca hizo algún tipo de seguimiento con usted en ese tiempo.
Sí.
Yes.
And do you recall what agency that was?
¿Se acuerda qué agencia lo contrató?
No.
No.
Do you recall at any time being notified that you could possibly testify in this incident?
¿Usted se acuerda que hay un momento que le notificaron que en un momento usted podría testificar sobre ese incidente?
¿Me puede repetir la pregunta?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you recall at any time being notified that it was a possibility that you could testify in this incident?
¿Se acuerda que en un momento podría, si lo notificaron, que habría sido una posibilidad que usted podría testificar con respecto a ese incidente?
No.
No.
Were you ever subpoenaed in relation to this incident?
¿Lo citaron alguna vez a corte con respecto a ese
Yeah, you
incidente?
subpoenaed him.
Sí.
Yes.
Do you recall who you received this subpoena from?
¿Se acuerda de quién
You!
recibió el citatorio de corte?
Del distrito de la oficina del fiscal.
From the office of the district attorney.
And do you recall when that was?
¿Se acuerda cuándo fue?
Un mes y días.
A month and a few days.
And following being subpoenaed, or following, rather, strike that back. After receiving the subpoena, did you follow up with the district attorney's office at any time after?
Después de recibir entonces el citatorio, ¿recibió algún tipo de seguimiento por medio de la oficina fiscal después del incidente?
Sí.
Yes.
Do you recall whom you spoke with?
¿Se acuerda con quién habló?
Susan.
Susan.
Would that be referring to Attorney Opera, who is seated at this table?
¿Se refiere a Susan Opera que está sentado en esa mesa?
Sí.
Yes.
And were you at any time informed of a plaintiff in this incident?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Confirmado la posición.
You don't need to answer that
No
question.
tiene que contestar la pregunta.
Were you at any time notified that there was a plaintiff in this incident?
Objection,
Grounds.
relevance.
The objection is sustained. The witness does not need to answer.
Contestar esa pregunta.
Do you even know if there's a plaintiff in this incident?
Objection, relevance.
Hay una legalidad en ese incidente. No tengo relevancia.
The objection is sustained.
Confirmado la
The
posición.
witness does not need to
El
answer.
testigo no tiene que contestar la pregunta.
Do you recall ever seeing, excuse me, do you ever recall, sorry. Do you recall ever seeing or reading a complaint in this matter?
Entonces, ¿cuál es usted vio, si leyó la acusación criminal en este asunto?
No.
No.
Look at this bald spot right here. Can we take the island and slap it on that bald spot for him? This is his witness. You would think there'd be something different that he would
Going
ask.
back to the actual incident, would it be fair to say that at the time you were very confused?
What?
Volviendo entonces al incidente, ¿se puede decir que en ese tiempo usted estaba bastante confundido?
¿Me puede repetir la pregunta?
Could you repeat the question?
Going back to the time of the incident at the parade, would it be fair to say that you were confused at the time?
Volviendo entonces al momento del desfile, ¿se puede decir que usted estaba confundido en ese tiempo?
No.
No.
Any reason why you don't recall seeing anything?
¿Hay alguna razón por la cual que usted no se acuerda de ver algo?
¿Me puede repetir la pregunta?
Could you repeat the question?
Any reason why you don't recall seeing anything?
¿Alguna razón por la cual que usted no se acuerda de ver nada en ese tiempo?
No vi el vehículo.
I did not see the vehicle.
Solo pasó.
It just passed by.
So he's not helpful to you. It's not helpful. This isn't casting any doubt in my mind whatsoever of your complete guilt.
Sorry, the interpreter needs to make a clarification on his last response. If I can inquire. Cuando te dice que pasó el vehículo, ¿quiere decir que ocurrió el incidente o que el vehículo pasó por usted? Cuando usted dice pasó el vehículo o que pasó como ocurrió.
Ocurrió, me pegó y pasó
Yeah,
rápido.
for clarification, the interpreter inquired if he meant the vehicle passed by or if the incident happened. The defendant, interpreter for clarification, the interpreter would like to say that he meant that it just happened, that the vehicle just hit him, rather than, I believe the interpreter translated what he said as it passed by. What he meant to say is that it actually happened, rather than passed by. So for that point of clarification for the record.
Thank you.
In other words, your question was stupid, and the answer is doesn't give me anything. The man was just hit by you, and he didn't see you coming because you came and hit him from behind. Surprise!
Also, for clarification, just so we're clear for the record, you don't recall actually seeing the vehicle.
También, si vamos a estar clarificando por el acta, no se acuerda que vio el vehículo.
No.
No.
No further questions.
No da preguntas.
Any questions, Attorney Basie?
Preguntas,
Briefly.
Basie? Brevemente.
Good morning, Mr. Marquez.
Buenos días, señor.
Yes.
Good morning.
On November 21st of last year, were you walking with the Catholic communities of WAUKESHA?
El 21 de noviembre del año pasado.
No,
desfilando
he
con
didn't.
Catholic communities of WAUKESHA.
Es correcto.
That's correct.
Hold on. What was the
¿Qué
objection?
fue la acusación?
I mean, you already.
You have to speak up. I couldn't hear what you
I
said.
have a code, so I
Tengo el
can't.
frío.
Mr. Brooks, was there an objection so I can move on?
Yeah, yes, there was
On
an
what
objection.
grounds?
En que
I can't even remember now.
ni me acuerdo ahora.
Well, if you were objecting on relevance, it's relevant. His answer may stand.
It wasn't relevant, so I'll tell you that.
Mr. Marquez,
Señor Marquez.
if you hear the word
Escucha la
objection,
palabra objection, me pongo.
please
Por
wait
favor, espere.
until I rule on the objection
Terrible,
Decisión,
terrible
posición.
me.
before you answer.
Hace que conteste.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Go ahead.
Adelante.
So we did answer the question?
¿Sí contestó la pregunta?
Sí.
Yes.
Thank you.
Muy bien, gracias.
You were with your wife and your son?
¿Estaba con su esposa y su hijo?
Sí.
Yes.
And your son's name is David Marquez?
Objection
¿El
leading.
nombre de su hijo es David Marquez?
Overruled. You called the witness. The state may lead. Go ahead and answer.
Conteste la pregunta, por favor. Si puede contestar.
What's that mean?
Go ahead and answer, sir.
Conteste, por favor.
Sí.
Yes.
You testified that at some point you were struck by a vehicle.
Objection.
Usted testificó en un momento que usted testificó que
Overruled.
fue pegado por un vehículo.
You may answer.
Puede contestar la pregunta.
Sí.
Yes.
Did you have any warning before you were struck by the car?
Objection.
Tipo de advertencia,
Hearsay.
de aviso.
Hearsay.
Por el carro. Me pongo a evidencia por evidencia.
Overruled.
Ah, no, ¿verdad?
Somebody said if he hears it and somebody says it, then it's hearsay or something like that.
The witness may answer.
Puede contestar la pregunta.
Idiot.
No.
No.
Did you hear a horn honking?
Escuchó
Objection.
una bocina, un claxon.
Hearsay.
Hearsay. Oh my God.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Puede contestar la pregunta.
No.
Oh
No.
my God. It's not hearsay.
Sir, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 161.
161.
Go ahead.
Adelante.
Can you see that picture on the screen in front of you?
¿Pantalla frente a usted? ¿Lo ve la imagen?
Sí.
Yes.
And do you see the approximate area where you landed after the vehicle struck you.
Usted fue al área aproximado.
Objection leading.
Después de que el vehículo
Overruled. The state may lead. It's not their witness. Go ahead and answer, sir.
Adelante y conteste, por favor.
So I can lead too if it's not my witness?
No.
No.
Well, hold on. We'll get to that later. There's been an objection. I'm overruling it.
Anulada posesión.
Go ahead and ask your
Yes,
question.
and she lets you
They can do
leave,
what they want.
and they don't object.
Got
Do
it.
you see
Because they
the
know-
area in which you landed after the vehicle struck you?
Después que el vehículo lo chocó.
Sí.
Yes.
The, I'd ask that this exhibit be admitted to evidence, which is 161, and published to the jury.
Objection.
Obrigado. Entonces, 161.
We can't even see who's what exactly is the state referring to.
¿Qué se refiere al Estado?
You can't even see who it is.
No veo quién es.
Just state your objection.
Su
It's
oposición
overruled
anulada.
Of course, it's gonna be overruled.
because it's attempt to testify. But if the state could just ask a few more foundational questions, please.
Certainly. When you met with the state, did you review some video of the parade?
Objection.
Me
Hearsay.
pongo evidencia por evidencia.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
No puedo contestar.
Sí.
Yes.
And after reviewing that video, were you able to determine the area in which your body landed after you were struck by the car?
Objection. Hearsay.
He is just trying to make it difficult for them to ask the questions. I think we've established it is difficult to ask somebody questions who doesn't speak your same language. And I'm sure it's difficult to answer questions if the person asking them does not speak your language. So if I speak a language and somebody is asking me questions who speaks a different language, and then there's a third person yelling objection, hearsay, or leading when they're allowed to lead, he's such a moron, and it's so rude.
Overruled as to both. You may answer, sir.
Después de que entonces se recibió entonces el choque del carro, determinó el área. ¿Se acuerda dónde su cuerpo quedó después de que el vehículo chocó?
Sí.
Yes.
And do you see that area on this exhibit?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Sí.
Yes.
I'd ask that this
Every objection.
exhibit be admitted to evidence and published for the jury.
Objection. What's the relevancy?
The objections are noted. They are overruled. And Exhibit 161 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
And it's indicated that that is now being seen in the jury box. Sir, the screen in front of you is a touch screen. Can you circle the area in which you believe you landed?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
How do you say where they believe?
Donde cree que se quedó.
Either you know or you don't.
The witness may answer.
Sí.
Yes.
Ridiculous.
Can you do that now?
Puede ser eso, entonces marcar el lugar donde se cayó.
That's where it's fixed the whole case.
Oh my
We
God.
can take a snapshot of that.
I don't know what Mr. Brooks just mumbled, but it's not his turn to ask questions. There was no objection. The jury will disregard that.
Now would have been a really good time to put tape over Darryl's mouth, because there's nothing he can add that a sign holding up objection, interruption, or whatever it is they wanted to put on it would have. He is just detracting, and he's interrupting and mumbling to make it difficult, because it's already difficult to ask and answer these questions between Leslie Basie and, if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, I'm so sorry, and the witness, Mr. Marquez, and with the interpreter. But to witness this whole thing, he's just throwing mud all over it. Like, ugh. Like the troll that he is, stomping around like an ogre, objection, and making stupid remarks. Ugh. He's so disrespectful to this man.
And this would be Exhibit 161A.
And we'll screen capture that. Exhibit 161A has been captured. Are you moving that in?
I am.
And Exhibit 161 is received. 61A.
Thank you. And do you see anyone that you recognize standing in that area?
Objection leading.
Overruled. The state may lead. It's cross-examination of your witness,
So
sir.
I can lead on cross-examination then?
I direct your attention to 906.11.
She gave you the material that directly tells you the rules. I don't know all the rules. I don't understand all the rules, but I'm picking up on some of this stuff that she's laying down, and you are too stupid. Ugh.
Sub
And I
3,
lead
sir.
on cross-examination.
I'm not going to answer that. Go ahead,
So
sir. You may
it's your
answer.
determination that you don't have to answer that?
Yes.
If I don't understand something?
The jury will
Yes.
disregard the comments being made by Mr. Brooks.
Judicial determination, okay.
Go ahead and answer the question if you recall it, sir.
¿Me puede repetir la pregunta?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Do you see, actually, do you see David, your son, in that picture?
Objection.
Con esa foto.
That was,
Sí.
Yes.
And is he wearing,
so my objection is not going to be noted.
No.
It's overruled. The state chose to ask a different question. That's fine.
and is he seated near some blue chairs wearing a blue jacket?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Sí.
Yes.
And sir, is that you laying down, and you can see in this picture your legs and they're hanging into the roadway?
Objection leading.
Witness may answer. Overruled.
Sí.
Yes.
Now, is that where you were walking when you were struck from behind?
Objection
in that
leading.
position?
Overruled. You may answer.
No.
No.
How far from the position that you recalled yourself to be at when you were walking did you land?
Objection leading.
It's not leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
She's asking for a distance. She gave 2 points for the distance. It's not leading.
Entre 15 a 20 pies.
Between 15 and 20 feet.
So your body
Wow.
flew through the air between 15 and 20 feet. Is that what your
Objection
testimony
leading.
is?
She can ask a clarifying question.
Sí.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't rule on the objection, but it is overruled and his answer may stand.
Was David also struck by a vehicle during the parade?
Sí.
Yes.
Did he received injuries as well?
This is his witness. This is his witness. All he has proven to me is that he hit this guy from behind without any warning, threw him 15 to 20 feet, where he lands with some sort of injury to his leg. And that he is an injured party. That's all I heard so far.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
Sí.
Yes.
Can you describe what your injuries were, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Sí.
Yes.
What were they?
¿Qué fueron sus
Objection leading.
Overrule.
Pongo pregunta encima, anulada.
La fíbula
My fibula
y ligamentos.
and ligaments.
Your fibia was broken?
Objection leading. Speculative.
Overruled as to both.
That's
The
not
witness
what
may
he said.
answer.
Sí.
Yes.
And you had torn ligaments?
Tiene entonces.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Puede contestar.
You didn't say that in the question before.
Sí.
Yes.
And were those both in the same leg?
Eso sería
Objection
lo mismo.
leading.
Wouldn't be happening if she had tape over the man's mouth.
Sorry,
Yes.
overruled.
Anulada la pregunta.
If we
Yeah, of course.
just wait when there's
Pero
an
cuando hay una
objection,
posición,
Beast.
I'm overruling it. It's relevant. It's not leading. The witness's answers may stand.
I mean, yeah, you overrule every objection.
And the jury will disregard the additional commentary made by Mr. Brooks at this time.
Judicial misconduct.
Which is actually a favor to him because he's making an idiot out of himself. If I were to not disregard that as a juror, I would think that he's a petulant child. Ugh.
Conduct at its finest.
At his finest.
And which leg was that, sir?
Objection, ask and answer.
X and answer.
Overruled.
X.
You may answer.
puede contestar la pregunta.
El pie izquierdo.
A food.
My left leg.
Did you have to have surgery on that leg?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Posición, pregunta encima, anulada.
Sí.
Let's
Yes.
see what y'all
Just
trying
one?
to do.
Nada más una cirugía.
Trying to get here.
Dos.
2.
That's not gonna work either.
You called this guy. You should have known how badly you injured him before you called him as a witness for you. God, this is actually, I've gone from anger to now, this is ridiculous. You called him. You called him. Oh my God.
Mr. Brooks, you are advised.
You called a man that you hit from behind, threw him 15 feet through the air, where he lands and breaks a bone in his leg, tears ligaments or tendons or whatever it is that he tears, and has to have not one, but 2 surgical procedures. Now, sometimes that's reasonable, okay, because you have one surgical procedure to put like a pin in or something and they pin stuff together, and then a second one to pull everything out once it heals so it can completely heal on its own without that piece in there. And that's the second one. Or it was just so bad that they had to go back in a second time. Or he wasn't able to maintain the injury and it was re-injured afterwards. It's still your fault. It never would have been injured in the first place had you not run over the man with your mother's car. Ugh, God.
To stop with the commentary.
No, I'm gonna say what I want.
You
to say.
called this
Say what I
witness.
want,
I'm going to
son.
take a break right now and excuse the jury and this witness.
All right.
What you doing is judicial misconduct. Judicial misconduct. But you don't want the jury to hear the truth. That's not fair to the jury. They have a right to hear everything. Not finna sit here and let you fix the trial because you don't want to tell the truth to the jury.
Mr. Brooks, please stop.
No, there ain't no please.
You are
nothing.
being disruptive.
Ain't
You
no
are being
please, nigga.
disrespectful.
You always
The
gonna
witness
find
may
some
step
reason to
down.
say somebody's being disruptive because they want the truth to be out there. Man, quit it. You supposed to be the
Mr.
judge.
Brooks, I'm advising you that continued interruptions will result in you forfeiting your right to be
Okay,
present
and
in this
under
courtroom
what law and
during
fact can you do that?
Illinois versus Allen.
Okay,
sir.
but the fourth option that you made up
Yes.
that's not even in the law
Yes.
Mr.
because you can't do that.
You can't do that. You can't do that. I'm such a thug. You can't do that. Yes, actually, the whole thing back in 75 or 72 or 77 or whenever it was in the 70s, they actually had the forethought to put in there the words, at least these three, because they knew that in the future there could be better ways to apply that judgment, which is what she's doing. She is utilizing the technology at her disposal to apply appropriately and actually give him the opportunity to continue to defend himself while she keeps the trial moving along. If those were shock devices, now would have been a good time.
I need to make a
By law,
ruling.
you can't do that.
I need to
And
make
you
a
know you
finding.
can't.
All right, I'm
I'm
going
a
to
fool.
excuse everyone. Mr. Brooks is being removed from the courtroom. He will continue in the neighboring
You are a
courtroom.
joke.
Please make sure he has his objection
Little
signed and a
tiny
pad
man.
of paper.
So is that
so that he can
So is that holding me in
meaningfully
contempt?
participate, and I will make a ruling when I.
so? Are
after
you
we
holding
come
me in
back up.
contempt? Is that civil or criminal?
I'd say, let's see if they do a short hearing on this. Oh, they moved him. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. They moved him. Yep, they throw him into the other courtroom, and good for her. Jeez, it took long enough. Jesus. Hold the wheel. Isn't that what the song says? Look at him petulantly opening. What are you wearing a mask for in there? Like, any chance I got to take off my mask, I took it off. Oh, there's one person. I guess if it was really COVID related, he would have. They're just showing him in here. That's hilarious. Look at his mannerisms and his behaviors. He actually looks sick.
Mr. Brooks, prior to the court removing him, had interrupted the court approximately 10 times prior to 10:19 a.m. Then, of course, he was removed. This does not include the repeated commentary, either under his breath but still audible for the court to hear, the jury to hear, and witnesses to hear, related to a variety of topics, including subject matter, jurisdiction, misconduct by the court, disapproval with the court's rulings. This very last witness was a witness called out of order at the request of Mr. Brooks. As I know the attorneys are well aware, and certainly this court is well aware, under 906.11, the court shall exercise reasonable control over the mode and order of interrogating witnesses and presenting evidence so as to do all of the following: make the interrogation and presentation effective for the ascertainment of truth, avoid needless consumption of time, protect witnesses from harassment or undue embarrassment. That's all under sub 1. Sub 2, scope of cross-examination. A witness may be cross-examined on any matter relevant to any issue in the case, including credibility. In the interest of justice, the judge may limit cross-examination with respect to matters not testified to on direct examination. I frankly haven't exercised my authority under that particular subsection. I have generally relied upon sub 1. In addition, sub 3 says the following: leading questions. Leading questions should not be used on the direct examination of a witness except as may be necessary to develop the witness's testimony. Ordinarily, leading questions should be permitted on cross-examination. And
That's pretty
during
clear.
the cross-examination of this last witness, Mr. Brooks objected almost without fail, if not without fail, to every single question asked by the state on grounds of either leading or relevance. And then when the court overruled the objections, as time went on, it seemed to me that his commentary became much more audible. He was muttering under his breath and clearly showing disrespect for the court and the proceedings.
And the witness.
In my opinion, they're baseless objections.
Yes.
Again, because this witness was brought into court on a subpoena that was from Mr. Brooks, served, of course, by the state to assist with him in that regard. But the state was well within its rights.
Making that question completely irrelevant, okay? Yes, the district attorney's office sent out the subpoena, but they were his. He called them. He called the guy. Ugh.
Rights to ask leading questions. It's this court's opinion that the repeated interruptions by way of baseless objections is to disrupt these proceedings, disrupt the testimony of the witnesses, and in particular, Mr. Marquez. This court has been abundantly patient this morning, noting the repeated interruptions by Mr. Brooks, starting right away at 8:31. There were a couple of interruptions, continuing at 8:37. At 8:48, I think we had a total of 5 more at that point or so.
Interruptions.
8:49, and then of course at 10:19, this court removed him under its authority in Illinois versus Allen. I also had warned him, or at least at times I would give the jury an admonishment, not really an admonishment, but an instruction, please disregard the commentary by Mr. Brooks. It's been very apparent that any time this jury is brought in or taken out, Mr. Brooks begins making statements that are misstatements of the law, or generally his disagreement with whatever is going on at that particular time, accusing the court of either bias or misconduct, accusing this court of hiding information from this jury. This court is not doing any such thing. I will make a finding that based upon the conduct of Mr. Brooks, that he has forfeited his right to be present during the cross-examination and any redirect of Mr. Marquez. Mr. Brooks's conduct has been anything but respectful today. It's been disruptive. As this court was stepping off the bench, he made some type of statement about contempt. Are you finding me in contempt? This court is well aware that one of the permissible ways to handle a defendant who shows flagrant disregard in the courtroom for elementary standards of proper conduct is to find a defendant in contempt. However, I'm not dealing with a defendant who is out of custody. I'm dealing with a defendant who is in custody on very serious charges, including, if convicted, facing the possibility of life sentences without the possibility of extended supervision. It is my opinion that finding him in contempt is not really a viable alternative to this court. Frankly, it would, in my opinion, it would serve to give the defendant,
More power.
let me restate that. In my opinion,
Okay, so in my very low level elementary understanding of this, what she's trying to say is that to be held in contempt, because I was held in contempt of court one time. Good story, by the way. I was held in contempt of court, and I was held. It wasn't really, it was kind of in a, I guess it was a cell, I don't know. It was a really nice room, really, what it was. I sat there for a couple of hours until I was brought back into court, and then they gave me the chance to reverse what I said, which I did not. Well, actually, he didn't. I thought he was going to give me the chance to reverse what I said, which I was not going to. But what happened was they reversed the contempt, saying that it was understandable for me not to comply with what they were asking me to do. And I think, so the only reason why I was kept in any kind of room at all or cell at all was was to, to give me a chance to rethink my behavior. What she's saying here is that he's already in jail. There's nothing more to do with him. So it's saying, if you don't behave, I'm going to put you in jail for a couple of hours. What does that mean? I mean, it's meaningless. So there is no more contemptuous thing. All right, so moving on.
opinion, if this court were to find Mr. Brooks in contempt, it would allow him to profit from his own wrongdoing because it would result in a delay of these proceedings. I would have to, of course, make certain findings. One of the possibilities for contempt is to hold him in custody until such time as he's willing to abide by the rules. That is just not something this court is willing to even do because it would delay the proceedings. I am aware that that is a option identified by the Supreme Court in Illinois versus Allen, but I would remind the parties once again that Illinois versus Allen was decided in 1970. Certainly the technology that we have available in this courtroom was not something available to the parties in Illinois versus Allen. We have a very new state-of-the-art courthouse that I am operating out of. I'm in courtroom 13. Next door is courtroom 20. These are just the room numbers that I'm referring to. As you can see, we have the ability to see and hear into that courtroom, and that courtroom has the ability to see and hear into ours. I will confirm with the bailiff and the clerk that the audio is working. I'm told that it is from my clerk. If I could also get verification from the bailiffs who are in that courtroom. But we have the ability, I have the ability, through that technology for Mr. Brooks to meaningfully participate. He does have, and it was provided with him when he was taken to that courtroom, the objection sign. I also instructed that he be given a pad of paper and a writing utensil so that he could write down his objections. Or if I feel it appropriate, I can unmute and hear what his objection is. But it's my belief that the use of my ability to mute and unmute will assist the proceedings so that it's orderly, that it is free from disruption as best as I can control it under my authority under 90611 and my authority given to me and expressed by the U.S. Supreme Court in Illinois versus Allen. Although I'm making a finding that he's forfeited his right by his conduct to be present for the continued cross-examination and any redirect of Mr. Marquez, I'll also make an alternate finding that the technology that I've just described provides the functional equivalent of Mr. Brooks being present during this case. With that, I would like to have the jurors brought in. I'll have the witness brought back to the witness stand with the assistance of the interpreter, and the state can continue with its cross-exam of the witness called out of order, but on behalf of Mr. Brooks. And I am getting verification from the bailiff in the other courtroom through my bailiff here that the audio and video is working as it should. Would also like to point out that there are headphones at the table in front of Mr. Brooks should he choose to wear them. He has not worn them in quite some time. Previously made reference to needing it when he was in the other courtroom, so they are there and available. All right, would Mr. Marquez and Interpreter Ryan please take the stand, and we'll have the jury brought out. And just for the record, I will certainly let Mr. Brooks know he can ask to come back in when he's willing to abide by the rules of decorum and courtesy. The record should reflect the jury is being brought back in.
2-year-old granddaughter. When you're ready. Are you ready? Ready to behave yourself? You ready? Are you ready?
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. The record should reflect that Mr. Brooks is appearing from another courtroom. That should not affect the jury's verdict in any way. The state may continue with its cross-exam of this witness.
The state would have nothing further.
All right, Mr. Brooks, do you have any redirect for this witness? Mr. Brooks, do you have any further questions for Mr. Marquez? The record should reflect that Mr. Brooks is reading out of a book. He has not answered the question. I will ask one more time. Sir, do you have any further questions for Mr. Marquez?
Am I unmuted?
You are. You have been.
What's going on?
Do you have any reading?
So what's going on? What's going on? Thug. Somebody called the Bible a pen holder. Basically, you're right.
Direct questions for Mr.
I wish I could
Marquez.
remember who they were. I need to write it down. Old woman. What's going on?
This is your opportunity to ask any follow-up questions that you have for this witness.
Oh, now he's going to put on.
Say something. I'm trying to see if the headphones on.
Say something. Say something. No, nobody's going to test your headphones. Not a sound check. It's not a sound check. Check, check, check. Check, check. Yeah.
Can someone say something from the other courtroom?
Any questions for Mr. Marquez at this time? It's your opportunity to ask follow-up questions. The state indicated it did not have any additional questions.
Nope, I don't got no follow-up question.
All right, thank you. Then, Mr. Marquez, you may step down. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, it was a waste of 90 seconds. Let's see what they're going to do now.
All right, I need to excuse the jury momentarily. Please rise for the jury.
Oh, it's times like this I look at how ill he looks. Like, look at how pale he looks. And how droopy he looks. Makes me almost feel like if I were to be empathetic towards him, which just makes me sick, how would I feel if I was in that much trouble? But then you think, does he really think that he can get out of this? All of these, this 76 charges. Like, why even drag everybody through this? Because you're entitled? Ugh.
All right, thank you. Be seated.
Oh, it's loud.
Mr. Brooks, under Illinois versus Allen, which that case clearly tells me to do, that once lost, the right to be present can, of course, be reclaimed as soon as the defendant is willing to conduct himself consistently with the decorum and respect inherent in the concept of courts and judicial proceedings. The court is going to continue with the direct examination by the state of Detective Carpenter. I would like you to come back to this courtroom.
Why?
Are you willing to conduct yourself consistently with the decorum and respect inherent in the concepts of courts and judicial proceedings?
No.
I didn't do anything to be held in contempt in the first place.
So are you willing to abide by the rules of decorum and civility? I would direct your attention to SCR Chapter 62, which has been provided to you.
A 2-year-old coming out of timeout does better than Darrible, the ogre troll trash goblin. What a piece of garbage.
You previously.
Does that say anything in there about me being held in contempt?
That does not, no.
So why have I been held in contempt?
I didn't hold you in contempt, sir. You are simply in a different courtroom based upon your disruptive behavior. I'm giving you the opportunity.
Has not been disruptive.
I've put my findings on the record, sir, and the record stands in that regard. I'm giving you the opportunity, if you can, indicate to this court that you will conduct yourself.
Why is she wasting her breath?
With courtesy and decorum.
She must need him in this courtroom for some reason.
Are you willing to do that, sir?
Just because all he's
Is
going
Your
to do
Honor
is
willing to tell
interrupt
me why I'm
Carpenter
being held in
every
contempt?
single time.
I did not
he
hold
opens
you
his
in
mouth.
contempt, sir. I've already indicated
So leave
that.
him over there.
Removing me from the courtroom is like holding me in contempt.
It's like
I
holding
didn't
me
hold you in
pee-pee.
contempt. You were removed pursuant to the authority given to me by the United States Supreme Court in Illinois versus Allen, based on your disruptive behavior.
My behavior wasn't disruptive, Your Honor. The record should be corrected in that. And as I recall you stating before, or not you stating, but us having a conversation about Illinois versus Allen for the record at one point. I got the date in my notes that we had it where I said on the record that there were three options identified And
Mr. Brooks, I'm not going to have a debate with you on what the law means and whether you understand it or not. I'm simply asking you whether you are willing at this time to abide by the standards of courtesy and decorum that are outlined in SCR Chapter 62 and that are inherent in the concept of courts and judicial proceedings, including making proper objections based upon the rules of evidence, based upon the rules of procedure, based upon the law, that you will not interrupt when you disagree with a ruling made by the court, and that you will generally conduct yourself with dignity and decorum.
But
is it not my right?
Is it not my right to object?
I'm going to ask Mr. Brooks one more time if he would like to come back to this courtroom and if he's willing to conduct himself with dignity, respect, and decorum.
But for the record, I don't consent to being called that name.
I answered the
I
question.
never stated that I wanted to be removed from the courtroom.
All right, I'm going to mute Mr. Brooks. He is clearly not answering my question. And given his recent conduct, I'll indicate he continues to forfeit his right to be present based upon the prior disruptive conduct. I have given him 3 opportunities to answer the question, would you like to come back into the courtroom? And in other words, to reclaim his right to be present.
Spoiler alert, there he is.
Has chosen not to answer that. I understand he disagrees with the characterization by this court of his conduct, but my ruling stands and the reasoning for my ruling stands. What I will advise Mr. Brooks is once the jury is brought back out and once the witness is back on the stand, I will unmute him so that he can properly object. And then I'll rule on, of course, any objections. I certainly reserve my right to use the mute function of the audiovisual capabilities that I have should that right be abused. So with that, why don't we have Detective Carpenter come on back to the stand. The jury is advised to come out.
How do we get back to him?
Your Honor, I know you previously ruled that if Mr. Brooks wanted to come back into the courtroom, he could signal to a bailiff in the courtroom that he's in, that he believes he can.
Yes, thank you. He may absolutely signal to the bailiff, and then they can get that information to me, and I will promptly stop. And
If he doesn't want to answer the questions directly, just give him another chance.
That invitation is an open invitation.
Okay, he advises. Oh my gosh, that was actually painful. I'm in physical pain. Oh my god. Okay, let's take a break here. We'll get back to Detective Carpenter because we know that's going to be a poop show there. Oh yes, we do. Oh, what an exhausting day. That was his witness. Ugh. All right. Like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you for joining. Love the comments. Love seeing everything. I know I've been working a lot because of the new car. I got to pay off that down payment, trying to get that all taken care of. Okay, let me take the puppy for a walk, and maybe I'll do another one a little later. Bye-bye.